All right. So how many here, by a show of hands, have something in your life, anything in your life that you're grateful for? Anyone? It's unanimous. All right, but I'm not convinced. If you have something you're grateful for, I'd like you to stand up with me if you're willing and able. Come on, I'm not kidding. And we're going to raise our fist into the air and say yes 3 times. Yes, yes, yes. Does that feel good? Yes. All right, you can sit down or remain standing or dance in the aisles, whatever brings you joy in this moment. So my talk is radical gratitude and entrance into the sacred. And now I'm convinced, but I would like to hear, I want to integrate it even more, all this gratitude. What are you grateful for? Just, if possible, one at a time, yell it out. See, I knew you couldn't do the one at a time. Family. Pets. Change. Virginia. Is that the state? No, I don't think so. Right. This teaching. This center, anyone? Can I have an amen for this center? Creativity. All right. I'll tell you what I'm grateful for. I'm grateful to be here standing in front of you, having the opportunity. I'm so honored to be able to serve at this center with you people. This is, we're streaming live. Otherwise, I don't want to say that this is my favorite center to speak at, right? Because I don't want to make all the other centers jealous. But, the first time I walked in the door here, I was energized. I was greeted by, 7, 8 people who said, welcome. This is just one of the best centers in the entire world. Yes. And I'm grateful for the amazing music we have. Angela Carol Brown, let's give her some more love. I'm grateful that Dr. Jim's away so I can be standing up here. All right. So radical gratitude and entrance into the sacred. But I'm going to start out just talking about regular old gratitude. Then we'll get to the radical part. So have you ever had the experience where you gave someone a gift, and maybe you didn't even think that much about it, just thought, oh, this would be nice for this particular person. I'll give them this gift. And you gave it to them, and they just lit up like the sun. Is that the best feeling in the world, to be the recipient of that kind of gratitude? Right? Well, guess what? And don't you want to give that person more stuff? Right? Because it feels so good? Well, guess what? The universal presence feels the same way. Not in an emotional way, of course, but in an energetic way. The more we say yes to our good, the more excited and enthused we get about all of our blessings, the more the universe wants to throw more good on us. Yes? And maybe you've had the opposite experience where you give somebody a gift, and maybe you really thought about this one. You give them the gift, and they get that kind of crooked smile on their face and say, just what I always wanted. Want to give that person more stuff? Maybe not so much. And one of the most inspiring things is when someone gets a gift, or maybe it's a gift in disguise. Isn't the most inspiring thing when you see someone who smiles in the face of challenge? Has anyone had anything in the last year or so, let's say in the last year, that has been either challenging, painful, or difficult in your life? Anyone? A show of hands? A few of you. That's good, because that means you're human, and I always enjoy speaking to human beings. So anyone who just raised your hand, feel grateful in retrospect for that experience? Yeah? You people are crazy. That's radical. Why would anyone be grateful for something that was challenging, painful, or difficult? Because you learn from it. It's a teaching. Joe.
Feel more joy.
You feel more joy. Ultimately, every experience is leading us to more joy. Yes? So I'll tell you about my story. How the book, The Magic of the Soul, became the book that it became. Originally, I started out writing a book about the magic of the soul, how to create what you want in your life, how to manifest what you want. And I felt I was really good at manifestation. I had, at the time, a corporate job making a six-figure income, a wonderful marriage of 13 years old. I was healthy, I was strong, I was an athlete, I was a tennis pro in my 20s. And so this was all occurring when I was about 40 years old. And a funny thing happened on the way to the magic of the soul. Everything fell apart. I mean everything. I became chronically ill, and so ill that there were times when I couldn't get out of bed for 2 weeks. My corporate job went away, related to the illness. My 13-year marriage ended, all within a span of maybe 6 months. It seemed like everything that I was identified with at a personal level, on an egoic level, was just stripped away. And the illness lasted for at least 3 years in that chronic stage, and then it started to get better. I was doing everything I possibly could to try to heal from this. I was trying all, of course, spiritual mind treatment. I was, doing all the alternative methods. I went, as well as traditional methods. I went to the Mayo Clinic. They couldn't find anything. There was no diagnosis for over 3 years. So I was doing energy healing, throwing lightning bolts out of it. Nothing was changing the outer situation. And all the time I was resisting this experience. I couldn't believe it was happening to me. Somebody who was in this teaching, already for 20 years, been meditating since I was 18 years old. And finally what happened, and by the way, my father died at 42 of cancer that wasn't diagnosed for several years. And so to me, it was kind of like the writing might be on the wall here. I may be approaching the end of the road here. And so what happened was I gave up, not in a apathetic way, but in a surrendering way. I decided that if I am to die from this, I'm going to use this experience as an opportunity to understand who I am as a sacred being at the deepest level possible. And when I got to that place, guess what happened? I started to heal. I started to heal. And then the book took on an entirely new life. And by the way, the healing wasn't like this straight line. What happened was I would start to feel better, and then I'd go out and do things I used to do, like walk, and then the symptoms would come back, and I would resist the symptoms again, and then I would remember, oh yeah, it was that surrendering thing that got me into this place of healing. So I would surrender again, and I'd start to feel better again. It was as though my soul were presenting me with an opportunity, with a lesson that I couldn't get in any more direct way, to be in a constant state of surrender. What is life like in a constant state of surrender? Think about that for a moment. And so the book completely changed direction. I mean, it still has a lot of information about how to manifest what you want in your life. But the emphasis became, yes, it's magical to create what we want in our lives, but what's even more magical is to embrace what we have, to be grateful for what we have. And not only those things that obviously bring us joy, but those challenges. Because as conscious beings, we always look back in our lives and we see that, oh yeah, that time that was the most challenging was when I grew the most, right? But do we feel that in the moment? Usually not. Usually we're resisting, either to a small degree or to a great degree. What would it be like to simply embrace the blessing in the moment? To ask, the practice of this is look for the magic in every experience, or look for the opportunity for growth, or look for the sacredness. This is the way I write about it in The Magic of the Soul. When we're in the experience of appreciating the sacredness in life, we open to a world of unlimited possibilities. Because we are alert to the magic, we notice opportunities that we might otherwise miss. Life becomes filled with a deeper level of peace and meaning as we recognize every experience as magical and know that each experience leads us to an ever-increasing expression of our soul energy. If or when we're operating from the perspective of our soul, our timeless, infinite existence, we see the larger picture. Asking what there is to be grateful for in any circumstance is an entrance into the sacred. And I ask you, isn't this seeing, this ability to see the larger picture, ability to see the sacredness in everything, or in some cases to, even if I can't see it, just trust that it is there, isn't this a prerequisite for enlightenment? Every enlightened being that has ever walked the earth is someone that has this quality. And we too are enlightened anytime we step into that presence of seeing the sacred in whatever is presented to us. Suzanne Summers, everyone remember Suzanne Summers? So, what was that? So Suzanne Summers, a few years back, you might remember this. This was on the cover of the LA Times. When we had the Malibu fires, her house was one of those that was burned down. So she was standing in front of the smoldering ashes of her house, and they asked her, "How do you feel in this moment?" And the first words out of her mouth were, "I know something good will come from this." Is that power? Can you feel the power in that? Yes? Yes. So, and I think that all of our most cutting edge, most popular spiritual teachers are saying the same thing in different ways. Byron Katie, any Byron Katie fans? Byron Katie says, love everything. And she means it. She means everything. From the mundane, I just tripped and stubbed my toe, right? To, my daughter's in the hospital and she may die. Loving that experience. Eckhart Tolle says, give up resistance to what is. August Gold in the prayer chest says, invite everything. Robert Scheinfeld in Busting Loose from the Money Game says, appreciate everything. I say, look for the magic in everything. It's all the same message. And you might say, if I'm appreciating everything the way it is, then why would I do spiritual mind treatment? Why would I need to change anything, right? And my answer to that is for the joy of it. To add even more joy into the picture. But I guarantee you, if we start from a place of acceptance, a place of embracing what is, our spiritual mind treatment becomes much more powerful than if we're starting from a place of, I have this lack and I need to fix it or change it. Does that make sense? In fact, the further I go along this path of practicing the magic of the soul, what I find is the less resistance I have in my being, in my consciousness, the more expansiveness I have available to manifest easily and effortlessly. It's like if I'm resisting anything, then I'm putting my energy into that. That's taking my psychic energy, my mental energy. If I have no resistance, then I think, oh, I'd like this to happen. And it manifests so easily because there's nothing standing in the way of it. Does that make sense? I'll tell you another experience I had that kind of relates to this. So I do these primal fire intensives in Canada. Well, I've done them all over. I've done them here several times, but I've been doing them in Canada for the last 5 years. On a friend of mine, a client of mine, who has a equine assisted learning facility, which is a fancy name for a farm with horses, right? But these horses are used as guides to teach us about our own authenticity. In any case, we're getting ready for the Primal Fire Intensive, this weekend intensive, and Carol, who owns the property, asked me and Kate, this wonderful woman from Ireland. She's a woofer. Anyone know what a woofer is? Workers on organic farms. See how educational this program is? And so Carol asked us to go in and into the barn and get it ready and bale this hay out, right? So we're in the barn and we're baling this hay and we're baling it into these slats in the floor that led down into a large pit. Apparently there were pigs that were housed in there, and their droppings would go, well, this is more information than you probably need. But in any case, we're baling the hay in, and we had to kind of compress it down. So I'm kind of stepping on it with my foot, and that's kind of working because it was really compressed in this one area. And Carol says, Patrick, be careful, you don't want to fall in there. And so I said, no problem, I got this. So then I go over to this other area where it's not so compressed, and I start stepping on that, and I go from 6 feet 2 to 4 feet 2 in a nanosecond. And I fall straight back on my back. I didn't fall in, I fall on my back. And I wasn't hurt. And you remember, I have to preface this, you remember the old Pink Panther movies with Peter Sellers playing the Inspector Clouseau? Thank you, Andy. We didn't prearrange that. So what I did, and the way Kate described it, she said, so here I am baling hay with this, kind of famous author, and he just does this really stupid thing, and I don't know what to say, I don't know what he's going to say, and it's kind of this awkward moment, and so I stood up, dusted myself off, turned around and said, every move I make is perfectly planned. And we just laughed for a half an hour with our jaws aching, our guts hurting. And so this, too, can be a spiritual practice. Anytime you do something that looks kind of stupid to you, and there's the tendency to beat yourself up, why not ask, or why not say, every move I make is perfectly planned? I told this story up in Northern California, Cameron Park Center, actually. I remember where it was. And this woman came up to me after the service, and they'd had a potluck. And she said, I just spilled this soup on my brand new dress. She said, I started to get really tense, and then I remembered, every move I make is perfectly planned. So, and here's the thing. As I said, as I travel this path, the truth that has come to me as I practice the magic of the soul more and more is that, and I like to present it as a question, what if everything that occurs is perfect just the way it is all the time? If we get out of that kind of judgment about it and recognize that everything truly is happening for us, it may not look like it in the moment. And again, I may not see, by asking what the magic is in this situation, I may not see it instantly, but I can always trust that there is some magic that will reveal itself as I move forward. And I guarantee you, it will reveal it much more swiftly and with greater ease if I'm not resisting it, if I'm open to the possibility. I've found that anytime we resist anything, it creates a block in energy, right? A block in energy. If I'm resisting physical symptoms, I'm blocking the very energy that's needed for the healing. As soon as I embrace and I send it love, like we did in the meditation, send it love rather than resist it or try to push it away, then it starts to heal. Yes? So let me tell you another quick story, and then we're going to bring up a surprise guest in a little bit. So, and then I'll give you a practice of how to do this. So there are these two brothers. One is named Bob and one is named Ed. Bob is a cat lover, and he has this cat named Perky, and he just absolutely loves this cat. Ed is a cat hater, right? And Bob is going away on vacation, and he thinks, well, what am I going to do with my cat? Well, I could leave it with Ed, but, Ed doesn't like cats, so I don't know if I should do that. On the other hand, Ed's been taking care of our elderly mother for many years, and he's doing a great job with her. So I guess if I can trust Ed with my mother, I ought to be able to trust him with my cat. So he leaves his cat with Ed, goes off to vacation, comes back, calls up Ed right away, says, hey, brother, how you doing? By the way, how's Perky doing? And Ed says, well, you know, Bob, I got some bad news from you. Perky's not so perky. Perky died. Oh, Mom's calling, gotta go, click. So Bob is just absolutely overwrought with grief about his cat dying. And also, he's really upset at the callous way in which Ed, his brother, gave him the news. So he mourns the loss for a couple days, and he goes back and he calls up his brother and he says, you know, Ed, I got to tell you, you know, it really upset me, the way you gave me the news, how uncompassionate you were when you told me about Perky dying. And Ed says, well, you know, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to say? Your cat's dead. I don't know how else to say it. And Bob says, well, you could have given me the news gently. You could have broken it to me gently, given it to me gradually. You could have first said, well, Perky's up on the roof playing. And then when I call, you could have called me up and said, oh, Perky fell off the roof and he hurt his leg, but I think he's going to make it. Then when I came to pick him up, you could have said, oh, we did everything we could, brother, but sorry, Perky didn't make it. And Ed says, well, maybe you're right. You know, I apologize, brother. Maybe I could have been more gentle and compassionate about it. And then Bob says, well, okay, I forgive you, brother. And by the way, how's Mom doing? Ed says, Mom's up on the roof playing. Sometimes we're like Bob, where we resist. We don't want to hear the bad news, right? We resist it. So the practice then is, in the next week, and beyond if this works for you, and I have a feeling it will, every time you feel discomfort of any kind, ask the question, what's the magic in this experience? And some people don't like the word magic, so you can use other words. What's the opportunity for growth? What is the sacredness that can be revealed from this? Literally, after I gave this lecture once, the next day, I stubbed my toe really hard. You know how that hurts? And I just started, you know, and by the way, sometimes you say it with different emphasis. What's the magic in this? And you add a few, you know, expletives. And what happened is I went into a state of bliss. I couldn't feel the pain anymore, simply by opening. Because when we become open, we become filled with spirit every time we're open. Not just some of the time, every single time. Yes?
Yes.
So I'll finish with this one final story. When a few years back, I was a featured speaker at the Silmar. This was right after the book came out as curriculum. You know, and I know, by the way, what I didn't say earlier that I want to emphasize is, you know, in retrospect, I knew that the book would not have become the book that it became if not for going through the illness and all that challenge, right? But I get cards and emails from people almost every day saying this is the most transformational book I've ever read. I know that wouldn't have happened had I not gone through that experience. So I was speaking at Silmar, and people were coming up to me because the book had just come out as curriculum, and practitioners and ministers were thanking me. But the greatest compliment I ever got was this very respected minister came up to me. She put her hands on my shoulders. She looked into my eyes, and she said, I want to thank you for writing this book. She said, I was in the second week of teaching it, and we were right at the part where you talk about honoring our humanness, honoring our own vulnerability, not only honoring our divinity, but honoring our humanness. She said, I was diagnosed with cancer, you know, in that second week when we were studying that. And if it wasn't for that synchronicity, right, what I would have done is I would have thought I did something wrong. I would have beat myself up for getting sick, right? Why did I attract this to myself? She said, if it wasn't for that perfect synchronicity, I wouldn't have been able to forgive myself in that moment. And as a result, I know that I would not have healed as quickly, as completely as I did. So that's the power of this. You know, I think the most difficult thing that we ever deal with as human beings is when we lose the physical presence of a loved one. And when that happens, and people come to me and they've lost someone, you know, I don't ever say, what's the magic in this, right? That wouldn't be compassionate. But I do intuit what it is. And my intuition about that is when I ask the question of what is the magic in my own pain, what I find is my deepest love. And so I'll say that to someone. I know that your pain and your tears are a beautiful testimony to the love that you feel from this individual. And so that doesn't take the pain away, but it shifts the focus to the love, so that now the love is coming together with the pain, and that's how pain heals, is when it comes together with love. Yes? Yes. So let's remember to support each other in those moments when we're not seeing the blessing, to see the blessing in the moment. And let's really join together and celebrate all the things that we have to be appreciative of. What a beautiful community you are. Thank you very much.